My neighbor sued me over a 1-inch fence, so I bought the land his driveway is on and completely destroyed his life. Listen closely, because this is the most satisfying revenge you will ever hear. I bought my dream house in a quiet neighborhood about 3 years ago, and everything was perfect until I met my next door neighbor. Let's call him Gary. Gary was the president of the Homeowners Association, and he had absolutely nothing better to do with his life than to measure grass with a ruler and harass people for leaving their trash cans out for 5 minutes too long. The trouble started when I decided to build a privacy fence in my backyard, because Gary would constantly stare at my wife while she was gardening, which was extremely creepy. I hired a professional contractor and we built a beautiful 6-foot wooden fence exactly according to the city guidelines. Or so I thought. 2 days after the fence was finished, I received a thick envelope in the mail. It was a lawsuit from Gary claiming that my fence was actually 6 feet and 1 inch tall, which violated the strictly enforced 6-foot limit of the neighborhood. He wasn't just asking me to cut it down. He was suing me for emotional distress and demanding that I pay his legal fees, which amounted to over $5,000. I tried to talk to him man to man, but he just laughed in my face and said, "Rules are rules and I will see you in court," so I decided to play by his rules. I hired a surveyor to come out and measure the exact property lines to see if I could find any loophole to save my fence. The surveyor spent 3 hours measuring everything, and when he came to me, he had a weird look on his face. He showed me the official city maps and pointed out that the property line wasn't where we thought it was. It turned out that when Gary built his massive concrete driveway 10 years ago, he actually built it 3 feet over the property line onto my land. Technically, I owned the land that half of his driveway and his expensive brick mailbox were sitting on. I asked the surveyor if he was 100% sure, and he said, "Yes, it is undeniable." I smiled for the first time in weeks. I didn't say a word to Gary, I just waited for the court date in the courtroom. Gary was smug and arrogant, telling the judge how I was a rule breaker who destroyed the aesthetic of the community when it was my turn. I simply handed the judge the certified survey results and said, "Your Honor, I am willing to take down my 1-inch fence, but only if Gary removes his illegal driveway and mailbox from my property immediately." The judge looked at the map, looked at Gary, and practically laughed. Gary turned pale white because ripping up a concrete driveway cost tens of thousands of dollars. The judge dismissed Gary's lawsuit and issued a court order, giving Gary 30 days to remove his encroachment. Or I had the right to remove it myself. Gary came to my door, crying and begging, offering to pay for my fence and my legal fees if I just let him keep his driveway. But I looked him in the eye and said, "Rules are rules, Gary." Exactly 30 days later, I rented a jackhammer and a bulldozer, and I personally tore up the half of the driveway that was on my land, leaving him with a jagged, useless strip of concrete that he couldn't even park his car on. He moved out 2 months later, and the new neighbors are awesome.